In the city of Port Harcourt, where wealth shimmered through tinted car windows and oil money built empires overnight, there lived a man named Chief Oladimeji Adetayo, a billionaire known for his sharp mind and quiet power. He owned companies across Nigeria, construction, oil, real estate, even tech, but despite his wealth, Chief Oladimeji was a man of few words. People feared him more than they loved him. But lately, something had been bothering him. He had begun to notice strange things, small thefts, broken trust, and greed creeping into his inner circle. People around him smiled too wide, spoke too softly, and yet their eyes betrayed their intentions. One night, while sitting in his private study, Chief Oladimeji poured himself a glass of palm wine and said quietly, "I've built empires, but I've lost my peace." His most trusted aide, Mr. Salami, looked at him curiously. "What do you mean, sir?" The chief leaned forward, his voice low. "Everyone around me claims to love me. But if I were poor again, who would still stand by me?" It was that thought that birthed a wild idea. He decided to test everyone around him, his friends, business partners, and most importantly, his loyal driver, Gbenga, a humble man who had served him faithfully for 10 years. For weeks, the chief prepared his plan. He secretly transferred most of his wealth abroad, shut down some companies, and told his staff he was bankrupt. By the next morning, the news spread like wildfire. Chief Oladimeji has gone broke. Cars stopped coming to his mansion. Business partners stopped calling. Even his supposed friends began avoiding him. Only one person still showed up every morning, Gbenga, his driver. The chief watched silently from his balcony as Gbenga knocked on the gate each day, still dressed in his faded uniform, holding a Bible and a small flask of tea. "Baba," Gbenga said to the gatekeeper, "even if Oga no get money again, I go still work. He's been good to me." The chief smiled faintly from where he stood. The real test had just begun. For the next few weeks, Chief Oladimeji lived like a shadow of his former self. The marble floors of his mansion grew dusty, his compound quiet, and the guards disappeared one after another. But Gbenga, his driver, never missed a day. Every morning he arrived in his worn-out shirt and polished shoes, ready to drive a car that no longer moved. One morning, the chief decided to take the test further. He came out dressed in a simple kaftan, no jewelry, no driver's seat behind a luxury car, just a tired, older man standing in his compound. "Gbenga," he said quietly, "you've heard what they're saying, that I've lost everything. You don't have to stay." Gbenga looked at him for a long moment, then bowed slightly. "Oga, I didn't work for your money. I worked for you. When you fed me. If you no get, I go still stand by you." The chief said nothing. But inside, something in him shifted. A few days later, he told Gbenga they would leave Port Harcourt for Abeokuta, to stay in a small old house he owned from his youth. No electricity, no generator, no chef, just a quiet life. Gbenga didn't complain. He packed their things into an old pickup truck and drove them out of the city, down long, dusty roads. In Abeokuta, Chief Oladimeji lived like a common man for the first time in decades. He fetched his own water, ate street food, and took walks in the evening. People who once bowed at his presence now barely noticed him. But Gbenga remained cheerful, even cracking jokes to make his boss laugh. One day, as they sat under a mango tree, the chief turned to him and said, "Gbenga, if I can't pay you again, will you still stay?" The driver smiled. "Oga, I didn't take this job because of money. I took it because you treated me like a human being. When my wife died, you paid her hospital bill. You didn't announce it, you just did it. That's something I can't forget." The chief looked away, pretending to adjust his glasses, but his eyes were wet. He decided to push further. A week later, he sent Gbenga on an errand with 500,000 Nigerian nairas in cash, pretending it was his last savings. "Go deposit this for me in the bank," he said. "It's all I have left." Gbenga took the money, placed it carefully in an envelope, and left. The chief waited all day, thinking, if he doesn't return, I'll know the truth. But just before sunset, he heard a knock at the door. Gbenga stood there, holding the deposit slip and 2 small loaves of bread. "Oga," he said, smiling, "I thought you might be hungry. I bought these with my own money." The chief's throat tightened. He wanted to speak, but words failed him. That night, under the dim glow of a kerosene lamp, Chief Oladimeji wrote something in his diary. When wealth blinds a man, only humility can open his eyes again. The test wasn't over, but already, the billionaire was learning what riches couldn't buy. A few weeks had passed since Chief Oladimeji and Gbenga moved to Abeokuta. The days were quiet, too quiet, and sometimes, the chief wondered if the world had truly forgotten him. He'd gone from commanding boardrooms to buying roasted corn by the roadside. Yet beside him, Gbenga never changed. He drove, cleaned, fetched water, and sometimes sang old Yoruba hymns while sweeping the compound. Then, one evening, destiny sent a test neither of them expected. Gbenga had gone into town to buy supplies when a sleek black SUV pulled up beside him. The glass rolled down to reveal Mr. Salami, the chief's former aide, the same man who had vanished when the billionaire went broke. "Ah, Gbenga." Salami greeted, smiling too wide. "Long time. So you're still with the old man, eh? I thought he had nothing left." Gbenga shrugged. "I'm still his driver. I can't abandon him." Salami leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Listen, you're a loyal man, and I respect that. But loyalty doesn't fill your stomach. Chief is finished. Come work for me. I'll pay you triple your salary." Gbenga frowned. "Thank you, sir, but I can't." Salami chuckled, opened a briefcase on the seat, and revealed bundles of cash, crisp 1,000 Nigerian nairas notes stacked neatly. "Nigerian naira 5 million, he whispered. "Just convince Chief to sell that land in Abeokuta. Bring me the documents. He won't even know it's gone." For a moment, Gbenga froze. 5 million Nigerian nairas. Enough to change his life forever. He could buy a house, start a business, maybe even send his younger brother to school. But then, a memory flashed, Chief Oladimeji's kindness years ago, paying for his wife's surgery, treating him with respect when everyone else saw just a driver. Gbenga slowly pushed the briefcase back into the car. "Sir, I can't sell my soul for money. I may not be rich, but I sleep with peace." Salami smirked. "Peace won't feed you." "Maybe," Gbenga said, stepping back, "but greed will destroy you." He walked away without looking back. Later that night, he returned to the chief's compound, looking thoughtful. The chief, who had seen everything from a distance, hidden in his car near the market, was silent. He'd followed Gbenga to witness what kind of man he truly was. And what he saw restored his faith in humanity. That night, while Gbenga slept, the chief sat by the window, whispering to himself, "Loyalty isn't proven by words, it's proven by what money can't buy." For the first time in a long while, Chief Oladimeji smiled, not the smile of a rich man, but the peace of one who had found something more valuable than gold, a heart that cannot be bought. But fate wasn't done yet. The final part of the test, and the biggest revelation, was still to come. The rainy season arrived early that year in Abeokuta. Thunder rolled across the sky as raindrops beat against the roof of Chief Oladimeji's old bungalow. Inside, he sat quietly watching the storm through the window, deep in thought. It had been 3 months since he pretended to lose everything. 3 months since he had seen the true hearts of men. And only one man, Gbenga, his driver, had stayed. The chief looked older now, his hair grayer, but his eyes clearer. The peace he once sought through wealth he now found in simplicity. That night, as the rain softened to a drizzle, he called Gbenga into the sitting room. "Sit down," he said gently. Gbenga, confused, hesitated. "Oga, you dey call me sit down? I fit stand, sir." The chief smiled faintly. "Today, you're not my driver. You're my son." Gbenga froze. "Sir?" The chief leaned forward, his tone low but steady. "Gbenga, I owe you the truth. I was never broke. This was all a test to see who truly cared about me, not my money." Silence filled the room. The ticking clock seemed louder than the rain outside. Gbenga blinked, trying to process the words. "The tester?" "Yes," the chief said. "I transferred my wealth secretly and told everyone I had nothing. I wanted to see who would stay." Gbenga's mouth fell open. "You mean, you still have everything?" Chief Oladimeji nodded. "Everything and more. But the truth is, I gained something far richer than money these past months. He stood and walked slowly to a cabinet, bringing out a brown envelope. This, he said, handing it to Gbenga, is for you. Gbenga opened it with trembling hands. Inside were property documents, a house deed, and a bank draft worth 20 million Nigerian nairas. The chief continued, "You passed the test, Gbenga. Not because you refused money, but because you chose integrity when no one was watching. That's the kind of man this world desperately needs." Tears filled Gbenga's eyes. He tried to kneel, but the chief stopped him. "No, my son. Don't kneel. Stand tall. You've earned this." Outside, the sky began to clear, the rain easing into silence. It was as though the heavens themselves were smiling at the moment. Gbenga's voice shook as he spoke. "Oga, I don't even know what to say." The chief placed a hand on his shoulder. "Say nothing. Just promise me one thing. When you rise, never forget where you came from." Gbenga nodded slowly, tears running down his face. "I swear, sir. I never will." That night, for the first time in years, both men sat together, eating from the same plate, rice and stew cooked over a small stove. The chief laughed softly. "Funny, isn't it? I had chefs, I had servants, but this simple meal tastes like peace." Gbenga smiled. "Sometimes, Oga, God has to strip us to show us what really matters." The chief looked at him with pride. "You speak like a wise man, Gbenga. Maybe it's time the world heard your voice." Neither of them knew that what was coming next, in the final chapter, would change not only their lives, but the lives of thousands. Months passed after the revelation. Chief Oladimeji and Gbenga returned to Port Harcourt, but nothing was the same anymore. The chief was wealthier than ever, not in money, but in wisdom. Word spread quickly that the billionaire had come back. Old friends began visiting again, smiling, pretending they had missed him. Business partners who had once ignored his calls now flooded his phone with messages. But Chief Oladimeji had changed. He no longer measured people by their smiles or their suits, only by their hearts. He reopened his companies, but with one major difference. He made Gbenga, his once humble driver, the managing director of his new foundation, the Adetayo Trust Initiative, an organization built to support honest workers and struggling families. At the public launch, reporters gathered in hundreds. The chief stood on stage beside Gbenga, microphones flashing. He began, "When I lost everything, or rather, when I pretended to, I discovered that riches mean nothing if you cannot find truth among men. I learned that loyalty cannot be bought, and that greatness means lifting others up, not looking down on them." He placed a hand on Gbenga's shoulder as the crowd watched. "This man beside me was once my driver. But today, he is my partner, because in a world full of greed, he chose integrity." The hall erupted with applause. Some were in tears. Others bowed their heads in shame, remembering how quickly they had turned away when the chief fell. Gbenga stepped forward nervously and spoke softly into the microphone. "I am not a great man. I only did what my conscience told me. Sometimes, it's not the money you have that makes you rich, it's the peace that comes from doing right." The audience went silent. In that moment, everyone could feel that truth didn't need volume, it just needed honesty. After the event, the chief and Gbenga walked together through the company garden. "Gbenga," the chief said, smiling, "do you realize this story will be told long after we're gone?" Gbenga laughed. "Maybe they'll call it the billionaire who tested his driver." They both laughed, the kind of laughter that only comes from hearts free of pride. Years later, when Chief Oladimeji passed away peacefully in his sleep, Gbenga continued the foundation's work. He built schools, sponsored drivers' children, and helped the poor rise from the same streets he once drove through. At the unveiling of the chief's statue, engraved beneath were these words: "True wealth is not found in what you keep, but in the hearts you touch." And as the sun dipped low over Port Harcourt, painting the sky gold, Gbenga stood quietly before the statue, smiling. He whispered, "You tested me, Oga, but in truth you taught me." The wind blew gently, carrying with it the quiet voice of legacy, a reminder that character, not comfort, is the real measure of a man.